The storm clouds had been gathering for months, a low, ominous rumble on the horizon of British politics, but no one, not even the most seasoned Westminster watchers, could have predicted the sheer ferocity of the tempest that was about to break. It all started with a letter, innocuous enough on the surface, delivered to Buckingham Palace on a seemingly ordinary Tuesday morning. Prime Minister Keir Starmer, leader of the Labour Party, was requesting a favor: a temporary retreat from the public eye for King Charles III. The rationale? Security concerns, naturally. The official line was that Labour's ambitious reform agenda had stirred up unrest, creating an environment too volatile for royal appearances in London. But beneath the veneer of concern lurked a far more insidious motive, one that would soon be exposed and send shockwaves through the nation. The truth, as it often does, resided in leaked documents, whispers in the corridors of power, and the growing unease of a public sensing that something was profoundly amiss. The Telegraph, that stalwart of British journalism, dropped the first bombshell. Internal Labour memos revealed a calculated strategy to diminish the monarchy's influence. The logic was chillingly simple. King Charles, with his enduring popularity and symbolic power, represented an obstacle to Labour's vision for a transformed Britain. A Britain, some within the party believed, where the old guard, the traditions, the very essence of what made Britain unique, would be swept aside. One email penned by senior Labour strategist Morgan McQueenie became the smoking gun. Its blunt assessment: the monarchy represents everything Labour must dismantle, ignited a firestorm of outrage. The words were callous, dismissive, and perhaps most damningly, deeply out of touch with the sentiments of the British people. Jacob Rees-Mogg, the Conservative MP with a penchant for historical flourish, seized upon the leak, reading excerpts aloud in Parliament. The chamber erupted, a cacophony of condemnation and disbelief. Even the most politically neutral commentators struggled to downplay the devastating implications. But this wasn't just a political scandal. It was a deeply personal affront. For many Britons, the monarchy is more than just a symbol. It's a connection to their history, their identity, their sense of national pride, and no group felt that connection more keenly than the veterans, the men and women who had served their country with unwavering loyalty and sacrifice. James Morrison, a retired Royal Marine with 22 years of service and 3 commendations to his name, became the face of their outrage. Speaking outside the Imperial War Museum, his voice trembling with emotion, he articulated what so many others felt. "We didn't fight for this country just for politicians to tell our king where he can and cannot go." His words resonated deeply, particularly when juxtaposed with the perceived hypocrisy of the political elite. While Morrison struggled to make ends meet on a modest pension, government ministers enjoyed lavish taxpayer-funded apartments. The contrast was stark, fueling the growing sense that Labour had lost touch with the very people they claimed to represent. Patricia Hughes, a lifelong Labour voter from Durham, echoed this sentiment. "I've voted Labour all my life," she declared, "but this attack on our monarchy is unforgivable. They've lost me forever." A petition demanding Starmer's resignation, launched by a veterans group calling themselves Defenders of the Crown, quickly gained traction, amassing hundreds of thousands of signatures in a matter of days. The ground was shifting, and the Labour Party was teetering on the brink. Then came Colonel Richard Kemp, a man whose reputation for unflinching honesty and unwavering patriotism commanded respect across the political spectrum. His appearance on BBC Breakfast was a masterstroke. Kemp, a former army commander who led British forces in Afghanistan, didn't mince words. 30 years of service, he said, and he'd never doubted his government's respect for the crown. Now, he barely recognized the country. That clip, raw and heartfelt, became a viral sensation, shared millions of times within hours. It was a gut punch to Labour, a stark reminder of the values they seemed so willing to discard. But the real earthquake was yet to come. King Charles, a man known for his adherence to tradition and constitutional propriety, was about to shatter the mold. On Commonwealth Day at Westminster Abbey, in front of a global audience, he delivered a speech that will be forever etched in the annals of British history. It wasn't the fire and brimstone of a revolutionary, but something far more potent. quiet, resolute defiance. Service to this nation, he declared, is not a privilege granted by politicians. It is a sacred duty that rises above temporary governments and fleeting political winds. Those who serve understand this. Those who seek only power never will. The Abbey fell silent. The message, though unspoken, was deafening. Charles had just accused his own prime minister of prioritizing power over service. Palace insiders whispered that he'd personally rewritten that section of the speech 6 times, stripping away the diplomatic niceties until only the bare, unvarnished truth remained. His advisors begged him to soften the blow. He refused. The fallout was immediate and devastating for Starmer. The royal family, it turned out, wasn't merely going to absorb the punches, they were counterpunching, and with devastating accuracy. Prince William, ever the astute strategist, made an unscheduled visit to a military hospital in Woolwich. Speaking to wounded veterans, he delivered his own carefully calibrated message. "My father and I will always stand wherever Britain needs us most. No memo will ever change that." The message was clear. The royal family was united, unbowed, and ready for a fight. Princess Anne canceled a private engagement to attend a household cavalry ceremony. Prince Edward undertook a whirlwind of public appearances. The palace wasn't just responding, it was waging a coordinated campaign. The markets reacted first, as they often do when faced with uncertainty. Within 90 minutes of the king's speech, the pound plummeted. Billions were wiped off the FTSE 100. Traders cited constitutional instability as the primary driver. Then came the political aftershocks. 7 Labour backbenchers publicly broke ranks. Veteran MP Graham Stringer branded the attempted royal ban the most foolish political decision in modern history. Sarah Champion, MP for Rotherham, revealed she'd been inundated with constituent emails, the overwhelming majority condemning Starmer's actions. Overseas, the tremors were felt just as keenly. Australia's Prime Minister abruptly cancelled his state visit. Canadian officials leaked concerns about Britain's constitutional reliability in trade talks. Even New Zealand's Parliament weighed in, passing a motion supporting constitutional monarchy. Meanwhile, the streets of Britain were alive with protest. Mass demonstrations erupted across the country. Thousands marched, waving Union Jacks and chanting "God Save the King." Even in Liverpool, a traditional Labour stronghold, crowds gathered in support of the monarchy. The polling data was nothing short of catastrophic for Starmer. One survey showed nearly 70% of Britons believed he should resign. His approval rating had collapsed faster than any prime minister in history. Inside 10 Downing Street, panic reigned. Cabinet Secretary Simon Case's outburst during that emergency meeting wasn't just frustration, it was the sound of a dam breaking. Deputy Prime Minister Angela Rayner's muttered observation about the limits of loyalty perfectly captured the mood. Those secret WhatsApp groups weren't just venting spaces, they were war rooms plotting the unthinkable. Regicide, Labour Party style. Foreign Secretary David Lammy's ashen face at the press conference spoke volumes, while Defense Secretary John Healey's silence was even more deafening. Those junior ministers, pens poised over their resignation letters, were like vultures circling a dying beast. Starmer, holed up in Downing Street, had become a prisoner of his own making. Paranoia, that insidious beast, had taken root. He saw enemies everywhere, and frankly, he wasn't wrong. Chancellor Rachel Reeves' quiet gathering in Notting Hill was no mere social call. It was a leadership audition, a promise of stability whispered in hushed tones. Education Secretary Bridget Phillipson's sudden illness was a convenient excuse to distance herself from the unfolding catastrophe. Home Secretary Yvette Cooper's clandestine meeting with independent-minded MPs was a clear sign. The knives were out, and they were sharp. Then came the final crushing blow, the leaked cabinet papers. Clara Ainsley's 9-page memo, a detailed warning of the impending disaster, laid bare the sheer recklessness of Starmer's gamble. But it was his reported response that truly sealed his fate. The monarchy needs to understand who's really in charge here. Those words, dripping with arrogance and a breathtaking miscalculation of the national mood, were his political epitaph. He had chosen this fight knowing the potential consequences, and he had lost spectacularly. Rishi Sunak, meanwhile, was playing a masterful game of political chess. His restrained performance during Prime Minister's questions, the carefully worded question about regretting the attempt to exile the monarch, was far more damaging than any direct attack could have been. He was the picture of calm reason, a stark contrast to Starmer's increasingly erratic behavior. The polls reflected this shift. The Conservatives surged, reaching levels not seen in years, while Labour plummeted to depths that evoked the dark days of opposition. Even in Labour heartlands, Tory leads were reaching double digits. Nigel Farage, never one to miss an opportunity, was circling like a shark, sensing blood in the water. The scenes at his rally in Stoke-on-Trent, the thousands chanting "God Save the King," were a powerful symbol of Labour's implosion. His silent pose, hand over heart, before uttering those 8 chilling words, "This is what they fear the most," was pure political theater, perfectly calibrated to exploit the moment. Reform UK's surge in membership and polling numbers was a clear indication that Farage was no longer just a fringe figure. He was a serious contender, poised to capitalize on Labour's disintegration. The next 72 hours were a ticking time bomb. Parliament's reconvening, the King's defiant return to London, the Labour National Executive Committee meeting, each event a potential catalyst for Starmer's downfall. The question wasn't if he would fall, but how spectacular the crash would be. Was he destined to become a footnote in British history, a prime minister who brought his party to its knees in a misguided battle against tradition? Or could he somehow, against all odds, pull off a miracle and salvage his career? The stage was set, the players were in position, and the nation held its breath, waiting to see how this unprecedented drama would unfold.